Good morning. I am going to pause here just for a little bit as y'all are rolling in. I'm watching the numbers climb. I'm glad to have you guys join us this morning. I will get started here in just another moment or two. Let people come in here. I've noticed that our pattern with these webinars is that people come in. There's a number of people that join us initially, and then they know that I'm talking and in the beginning, and so they wait out that and join us later when our main speaker comes on. And I don't blame them. I'd rather listen to the main presentation than just me too. But I'm. It's funny watching the numbers climb as time goes on. Well, thanks for joining us. My name is Harry Urschel. I lead Minnesota Crossroads Career Network, and here in the Minneapolis area. I know some of you are joining us from other parts of the country. I'm really grateful for that. And in fact, the last, all of our webinars, we generally get people from anywhere from 10 to 15 different states. And it's just always been terrific to be able to reach people in other parts of the country as well. We have a great morning lined up for you. I want to share a couple of things first, and then have a short video for you that I hope ultimately will be encouraging. And then we have Dale Kreienkamp, who I'm so glad to have join us this morning. He's actually down in St. Louis, and that's the other advantage of doing webinars like this instead of just in-person meetings, is that we can have people present from other parts of the country as well. And Dale has spoken for our Crossroads meetings before, both in person and online. And I'm always encouraged when I hear him, and I know it'll be encouraging for you as well. I do want to, as I mentioned, just add a couple of reflection. Part of our hope with Crossroads is that along with helping people succeed in their job search, we also talk about bigger issues and point people to the hope and encouragement of Jesus Christ. There's a verse in the Bible that gets quoted often that says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Now, I think that's too often taken out of context. People quote it as if it means that through Christ, I can leap tall buildings in a single bound. But then they look at their life or their circumstances they're in and wonder why it's not working for them. And they trust God, but don't seem to be accomplishing what they want. That can be discouraging. There's a common cliche that's also often used that says, God will never allow bigger trials in your life than you can handle. But that's not a biblical idea. It doesn't say that anywhere in Scripture. There are times in life when we do face things that are more than we can handle. And the context of that verse is talking about when we're going through all kinds of difficulties, when we don't seem to be able to go on, that we can get through it, not with our own strength, but through the strength that God provides, because he's always there with us and when we trust him. He never promises to give us everything we want, but he does promise that he'll never leave us and never forsake us, that he will provide the strength and he'll carry us through the times we can't endure on our own. And I know a job search can be discouraging. Dale's going to talk about that today. And sometimes we feel like, what do I do next? And how is this going to go? And what does the future hold? But your current circumstances may be tough, but you can grow and learn and make it through by his strength. My hope is that it gives you hope in whatever situation you're in, and that you lean into really seeking God through this process. It's really in times of challenges in our lives that we change. I actually just saw a quote this morning by Damon John from Shark Tank, if you know him, the founder of Fubu, the clothing company. And he said, without challenges in life, we never grow. And that's absolutely true. We never change. And I think that's true in our spiritual life as well. Let me open in a word of prayer, and then we'll get to the rest of the content this morning. Lord, I'm glad to have people join us online this morning. Even though we're not seeing each other, I pray that you use this time for your purposes to give everybody something they need this morning, whether it's boldness or encouragement or hope or practical and tactical things that are going to help them in their job search. Father, you know each person's circumstances, then they understand them themselves. You know my situation better than I understand myself. Father, I pray that you use this time for your purposes in Jesus' name. Amen. With that, I want to share my screen and share a short video here. It's whether you're a fan of NASCAR or not, it's an example of when your career doesn't go the way you intend. And when you find yourself out of a job, it's kind of a unique situation here. When we say our career crashed and burned, this is more intense in NASCAR when you crash and burn your career, and how Michael McDowell came out of that and succeeded in the end. And I hope it's encouraging for you. Let me, as I say, share my screen, and then after the video is done, I'll come back on and introduce Dale Kreienkamp.
Being a NASCAR driver, there's 39 losers and 1 winner. I remember thinking, I almost died right there. 9 months later, I was without a job, sleeping in my rental car in the parking lot. If I ever had a shot to win a race, this is it. Right after that national anthem, you load into the car. Nerves are kicking in. When they say, gentlemen, start your engines, you light that engine up. You hear that sound of 8 cylinders and 750 horsepower fire up. That's when it gets real. You can't lose focus, not even for a second. Inside that race car, it is hot, it is loud, it is rough, but there's not a lot of time to unclench from the steering wheel because you're holding on so tight. And when you're in that zone, everything slows down and gets quiet. Your brain is going faster than those wheels are. You're not just thinking about where that car is, where you are, but the move you're gonna make, how you're gonna make it, what you need to do. Even though you're at 200 miles an hour, inches apart or inches from the wall, you don't feel like it. You feel like you're in complete control until you're not. I came into NASCAR in 2008. I was young and arrogant and had a chip on my shoulder. I'd won everything that I've ever done leading up to that point, and felt like that wasn't gonna stop. And very quickly, I got very humbled in this sport. 2008, the first thing right out of the gate, race 2, Texas. I had this huge crash. I got into turn 1 and got loose, and the car started to spin out, and I went to the brakes, and there was no brakes there. Went to the gas, and it just hooked. And when it hooked and turned, I was facing the wall, and I remember thinking, man, this is gonna hurt.
Whoa, guys, whoa, whoa, oh, no, oh, my gosh.
When I hit the wall, I was doing about 185 miles an hour when I went head on into the wall. Somewhere around 100 Gs was the impact, and then barreled 13 times. Once that first impact happened, everything got super quiet, and it sounded like somebody hit the mute button, and I could just hear a crunch, crunch, crunch. And I was just thinking, when is this gonna be over? And when it finally landed, I remember wiggling my fingers, wiggling my toes, trying to figure out, all right, I got anything broke? Am I alive? What just happened? And once I got out of the car and I stepped down, I realized that they're playing it on the replay. And when I saw it from that perspective, I was like, oh man, I almost died right there. You want to get known for winning races and winning championships, but I got known, for that big accident. I came into the sport with a big contract and a multi-year deal, and 9 months later, I was without a job, and my wife was pregnant, expecting our first child, and just so much happening in that period of time, and so many trials that it was really hard to wrap my head around, what God was doing. I remember, just opening up my Bible and just praying, like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And I just closed my eyes and I opened up my Bible and I landed on James 1. And James 1 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. let perseverance finish its work so that you may be not lacking in anything. And it's just one of those moments where just God spoke to me that this, hard times that I'm facing, it's for a reason, that it's doing something in me and through me, and it's teaching me about what it means to persevere and what it means to lean in and trust in God. And that perspective really changed, what my next 10 years looked like in the sport. It was rough and it was a grind, and showing up to the racetrack knowing that you're not going to be able to run all the races and not run all the laps, and driving to the racetracks and sleeping in my rental car in the parking lots, and staying in other people's hotels and bumming rides just to get there, that it wasn't wasted, that God was using it and that he was doing something that was shaping and molding not just my career, but me. I was doing what I had to do to stay in the sport, to continue to gain experience and build relationships that one day would hopefully allow me to go back to full-time racing. And I started with a small team, and we were running 30th every weekend. And then, 6 months later, we're running 25th, and 6 months later, we're running 20th. And it's just a slow process and a build. And finally got to where I was running full-time and running competitively. Still wasn't winning, wasn't running top 10, top 5, but we were in the mix. And it started to feel like there was light at the end of the tunnel, and finally got to the point last year where we were competitive every weekend and getting top 10s and getting some top 5s. And that took 14 years to know that you can be without a job and just a second just helped me to really just trust God, that God had a plan and doesn't always look how I want it to look or how I expected it to look, but God is faithful. And I came to the racetrack week after week hopeful that this is the week. This is the week it's going to happen. This is the week that everything's going to come together and I'll finally get that opportunity to win a race. And it took a long time and a lot of trials to get there, but my opportunity finally came. First race of the year, our biggest race in the sport, Daytona 500. The granddaddy, if I ever had a shot to win a race, this is it. It finally all started to come together. Coming to about 5 laps to go, I felt like I was in a really good spot. I was right where I wanted to be. I had a plan, sitting in the top 5, sitting third. Coming off of turn 2, I had a big run. I was pushing the 2 car. He went for it, tried to pass the 22, and it was literally like the seas parted. They had contact. The 2 went to the right, the 22 went to the left, and I went right through the middle. And then the caution comes out with the checkered flag, and you sit there and you think, man, I think I just won the Daytona 500. And so there's a 90 seconds there where they didn't know who had won the race. They had to go back and look at the film, and immediately my mind just went, oh, what if you didn't? What if you didn't win? You're so close. What if you didn't win? And then they said 34 to victory lane. I just remember just being overwhelmed with emotion. I mean, I was making noises that I didn't know I could make, and just so much pure just excitement to finally win a race and to do it at the Daytona 500. And I remember about 30 minutes after the win, just this overwhelming just gratefulness and very sombering of feeling like, man, I didn't do anything. Like, God literally provided this opportunity, and it started 14 years ago. God was walking with me through the valleys before we got to the mountaintop, the grind and the trials. He was shaping and molding me for this moment, to be ready for this moment. When you get to the mountaintop and you know that God's walked with you the entire time and that Christ dwells in us, he died on the cross for me so I could be forgiven of my sins, that's enough for me to give him my entire life and to follow him. There's nothing greater than having that peace of knowing that God is with you and walks with you. My name's Michael McDowell, and I am second.
Just a moment. There we go. Just kind of on that same theme that God will walk with you through whatever challenges you have in life. And sometimes it's more dramatic than others, but very few people crash and burn their careers as badly as that. And it just really strikes me watching him and listening about 14 years of struggle till he got to the place that he started out thinking he was going to get there quickly. 14 years is quite the challenge and quite the trial. With that, and very much related to the things we've been talking about, I am so glad to be able to introduce Dale Kreienkamp. Dale, as I mentioned, had presented at Crossroads, and he came down last year, or came up, I should say, from St. Louis to Minneapolis and presented in person at one of our meetings. But he's done other webinars for us. Dale has a book called How Long, Oh Lord, How Long, that is outstanding as a devotional to kind of get you through these tough times of a job search. It's written specifically for job search and dealing with that emotional roller coaster. How do you navigate that? And that's his topic for today. So Dale, I'm going to turn it over to you. You've got the next hour. I'm so glad to have you come on board and share with the group.
Well, good morning, everybody. That's quite a video to follow, that's for sure. But it's a wonderful introduction to all of this. And what I would tell you is the best way to get to know somebody is to hear their story. And so I want to share my story with you because I think it's going to be maybe beneficial to you to know what somebody else has gone through. And my story begins many years ago, and it was on a Tuesday. So I worked for a large metropolitan St. Louis hospital. We were the third largest hospital in the St. Louis area. We had over 4,000 employees, 1,000 medical and dental staff, another 800 volunteers. So a relatively decent sized organization. We had a chief operating officer who was new to the organization in the past year, and he continued to say, we have too many staff. And as a leadership team, we wrestled with that for a long time because we had a history of just not reducing staff. And ultimately, we came to the conclusion that, yeah, the numbers didn't lie. We needed to make some changes. And so we, as a leadership team, had said, I think we need to start with leaders first. And we need to do that because we really need to set the tone for everything else. And so we walked through everything as a leadership team, and we had identified 25 leaders that were going to lose their job. So my job, I had three parts that were my responsibility. One was I had to prepare 25 leaders in our organization to have a conversation with somebody, to tell that person they didn't have a job. How do they go about doing that? It might be somebody that they hired and mentored. And how do you deliver that message? I then had to figure out a support plan for how do I support 25 people who are going to walk in the door on a Monday thinking it's a normal Monday, and then all of a sudden find out I don't have a job. And the third is, how do I help the entire organization know that what's next? What does this mean for me? How does this impact us as an organization? And so I and my team did some work to prepare for that. And it was a Tuesday, and I was meeting with the chief operating officer. And we were walking through everything. He happened to be in our building for a particular reason. And so he came to see me, and I walked him through everything. And he thanked me. He said, this is great. You guys are right on target. I appreciate all that you've done. Then he stands up, but he didn't leave. He actually then moved and stood behind his chair. So picture me looking across the desk to him standing behind the chair. So it's like he had a double layer there. And then he looked at me and he said, your name is on the list. 6 little words. Your name is on the list meant I was number 26. The following week, I was going to lose my job. It was a job I had had for 25 years. My kids had been born there. I grew up there. 25 years exited with 6 little words. And I went into a job search, just like some of you on this webinar are in the middle of right now. It's not a thing that I wanted to do. I love the organization. I used to say that if you cut me open, I'd bleed the corporate colors of the organization, but that was done. And so now I needed to move on to find what was next. And in that journey, as I went along, I ended up starting a consulting firm because I didn't find what was the right fit for me. And ultimately, consulting opened up, and I did that for 5 years until a client that I'd done some work for came back and said, we need you. We really want you. And there were some unique things about that organization that made me say, okay, I need to do this. I need to take this job. And so I did. And then 10 years later, I got a call from my boss that said, let's have breakfast. And at that breakfast meeting, I heard similar words to the ones I'd heard once before, which is, thanks, but we've decided to eliminate your position. And it's those experiences that I went through that I learned many things about myself. I learned many things about the job search. And I want to share some things with you today. Things that I hope are going to help you. And so let me try and share my screen here. And I do have some slides, and the slides are This pops up right. So as we talk about this job search, I want to talk today about something that nobody likes to talk about. And that's the emotional side of this journey. It is candidly the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. In fact, people ignore it as much as possible. They don't want to admit that those emotions are really there. But what I found for me personally, and maybe for some of you, it's the emotions that are the hardest part of the job search. I can teach someone to interview. I can even pay somebody to write my resume for me. But how do I navigate the ups and downs of this journey and this search that just feels so awkward? Because, most of us don't plan on being unemployed. I have a job and I'm doing it and I'm doing it well. And all of a sudden it's not there. It's really disorienting. It really kind of shakes up life on you. And so as we talk today, hopefully you're going to learn a little bit that maybe you've experienced some of these things. I'm going to try and tell you a little bit about why you might experience some of these. And I'm going to give you some thoughts and certainly hope for how do I navigate those and how do I do better. I will tell you that good news is today, if you're unemployed, you're in the barrel and it's hard. And I'm not going to give you a bunch of cliches because I hated all the cliches I heard because I hurt. I was in the midst of it and I didn't like it. It's not where I wanted to be. But I will tell you that I came out better for it. And the people that I talk to that have been through it, I don't hear people ever come up to me and say, Dale, it was the worst thing for me. In fact, it's the opposite. They say this is the best thing in the world for me. I'm now at a company that really appreciates me more. I've had a chance to do different things. But you're not there right now. You're in the midst of the process. What was has ended. What is new has not yet begun. And that middle is really kind of a messy, uncomfortable place. And so this road of transition for you, I'll tell you a couple of things. First of all, it's a personal journey. Just because your friend has been unemployed before doesn't mean their experiences are going to be like yours. In fact, I always hated it when somebody would sit down and say, well, I was unemployed once before, and all you have to do is A, B, and C, and it'll work, because that worked for me. Well, that worked for them at that point in time. And I don't know why it worked, but it doesn't automatically apply to everybody else. This is a personal journey. This is your journey. And it's going to be unique to you because you're you. Probably the uncomfortable part is there's no rules that apply to it. We often think, how should I be acting? Well, there's no rules and there's no rule book. I couldn't go find something that said, go do these things. There are a lot of thoughts and there are a lot of opinions about it. And at the very end today, I'm going to share some things about places where I find people get stuck the most. But really, this is just a unique journey for you. And let it be. That's okay. It might feel better if you knew there was the recipe that I could follow and everything would get fixed at a particular time. It unfortunately just doesn't work that way. So first of all, I want to start with saying how big unemployment really is, because when I was unemployed, it was kind of like, well, wait a second. This is a unique thing. I've lost a job. And the more research that I did, I found out it's not uncommon. In fact, it's almost the opposite. So in this country, and I'm using pre-pandemic, the average annual job losses. So this is not people that walked in and said, I'm quitting, I'm retiring. This is the job has gone away. The company said, we're not going to have these jobs anymore. So it's a layoff, a discharge, job elimination, 21.7 million per year. Okay, per year. So how big is 21.7 million? Well, I live in, as Harry said, in St. Louis. So if I added up everybody that lives in Missouri, and I added Illinois, and I added Kansas, I'd get close to 21.7 million. Now I realize that that 21.7 million will happen this year, and it's going to happen next year, and it's going to happen the next year. And we've got about somewhere, I'm going to guess, 160 to 180 million people in this country working. It's about the size of the state of Florida. Or if you go out west, it's going to take about 7 states to add up to get to 21.7 million. So you're not alone in going through it. For some of you, you may be going through it a second time. And I pray not, but I've known people that have gone through it a third time. And so recognize that everybody in their career, if you just did the math, somewhere is going to go through what you're going through. As we begin this journey, I want you to know that there are 3 lies that you're going to hear. So 3 lies come to you internally. I believe Satan's the one who's always telling us those. And here are the 3 lies. So here's the first one. I'm a failure. Boy, is it easy to feel like a failure. I had something and I lost it. There must be something that I did wrong, that I failed. I failed that I don't have a job. I failed my team, because if I was a team leader, my team isn't, the team's without me. If I'm on a team, my teammates are without me. And for my family, now I've put my family in a different situation because I failed. I'm here to tell you, you didn't fail at anything. This happens. Jobs get eliminated for a variety of reasons. When my jobs were eliminated both times, I heard almost the same thing. You have a really good staff and you make the most money. And therefore, we think we can do without you and save the money and still have the great staff. But that doesn't mean I didn't feel like a failure, because that lie comes into your head. So the second lie you're going to hear is, I'm helpless. Well, what does that mean? Well, picture yourself having not looked for a job for 20 years. The way you looked for a job 20 years ago in 2005 is completely different than it is in 2025. Now everything is electronic. There are robots scanning resumes to pick out keywords because we have applicant tracking systems. And it's pretty easy to feel helpless. The other part of it is we just don't have control over things. You can't create a job. You don't have that ability to create a job. You might like to create it, but you don't have any ability. So it just kind of feels out of control. I can't control anything. And so that lie continues to beat into your head that you're helpless. The third lie is I'm unwanted or I'm unloved. You see, when you're in a job search for a while, you start to say, well, I begin the search with, oh, I've got some great skills. People are going to want me. I'm valuable. And then all of a sudden, when the right opportunity doesn't come along, a month or two into it, then you start to say, well, what's wrong with me? Doesn't anybody want me? Doesn't anybody care about me? Again, that's Satan pushing at you a lie. You are wanted. You are loved. It's just the right opportunity hasn't yet shown up and been ready. So when these lies come to you, you need to recognize that these are lies, that these aren't real, but that's a lie. So what do you do? I don't know. Do you call Ghostbusters? No, Ghostbusters aren't going to help. I'll give you two things that are going to help the most. First of all, it's surrounding yourself with a community of people that care about you, that you can talk to. Try to do this job search thing on your own just because you're a little bit embarrassed that have lost a job and you think nobody will understand is just a fallacy. You need some people that you can talk to and be in regular conversation, because sometimes it's those people that can say, hey, snap out of it. It's okay. You're valuable. Don't believe those lies. The other is, and Harry talked about it earlier, Jesus, our Lord and Savior, is ready. And some of you on this webinar may say, well, I don't know him. Others of you may say, well, I knew him a long time ago. And some of you might feel closer, but the reality is it doesn't matter. He's there and he's ready to listen. He's ready to hear, and he's ready to help. And so I encourage you to take this opportunity to make sure you spend some time in prayer and conversation, because that's a big source of power to deal with and push back against the lies you're going to hear. So those lies standing alone, you might say, well, I don't have any of those. I had somebody tell me, oh, I've never had any of those emotional things that you talk about. I've never had any of those lies. I just kind of shook my head and said, okay, if you want to believe that, I doubt it, but that's what you want to believe. But let's begin with understanding our emotions, because I think when you understand them a little bit better, you'll be able to see some of the things that happen to you and why they happen to you. There's a gentleman named Jonathan Haidt who wrote a book in 2006 called The Pursuit of Happiness, and he gave an analogy of what emotions are like. And so to bring that to life, I want to start with my nephew, Steve. So this is my nephew, Steve, who for many years was a zookeeper at the St. Louis Zoo. Standing next to Steve happened to be my three oldest grandsons, and this was probably taken about 5 years ago. So they're probably about 7, 6, and 5, and you can tell they're looking kind of goofy there. But I want you to think of Steve and his work as the zookeeper as logic. Okay? He's the logic part of this. But Steve worked with elephants. He worked with elephants. And those elephants are kind of the emotions. Now, I've watched Steve do his work with the elephants. And there are some days when Steve goes and he's supposed to get the elephants to do a little, some activities for the crowd, that those elephants look at him and they just ignore him. And he can stand there and command them all he wants, but it doesn't work. Because you see, Steve's trying to use logic, and elephants are the emotions, and they're more powerful than logic. You can't stop an elephant when it's moving. It's sometimes hard to slow those emotions down, and they take over. And so as we think about emotions, they are 4 to 5 times more powerful than logic. Now stop and think. When you watch TV commercials and the advertisement comes on, ask yourself if they're appealing to your logic or your emotions. If you're honest with yourself, they're appealing to your emotions. We're getting, we're less than 100 days to Christmas. And you're going to see probably that commercial you've seen before where the gentleman takes his wife out because she got his and hers watches for him. And they're going to go out and he's got his and her vehicles for him. Now, I don't think that's appealing to logic. That's an emotion. How do you feel about being able to give your spouse this new vehicle and you having a new vehicle? People, advertisers prey on emotions because emotions move people to buy, not logic. And in this journey, that's what you're going to come up against is logic and emotions. So there's a gentleman named David Rock, and he talked about emotions and how we react to them. And so I'm going to talk through his work and how it comes to play, but let me tell you a quick story that might help you with it. I was watching TV one night, and as I was watching TV, the news anchor said, "We've got an amazing story of a young woman who escaped an attack of a grizzly bear with a pistol." And then quickly they cut to the reporter out in Northwest, actually in Canada, and they were talking to a young woman and said, "We want to hear your story." And the young woman said, "Well, my new boyfriend and I were out walking in the woods, and as we came over the ridge, we saw these 2 cute grizzly bear cubs. And we looked all around and we didn't see anything. And we thought, this is great. Let's go get some pictures." So we moved in a little bit closer. And just as we were starting to take a picture, all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, the bushes started to move and out came Mama Grizzly Bear. And she is charging straight for us. I didn't have time to think or react. I immediately pulled out my Beretta Jetfire pistol and I fired 2 shots into my new boyfriend's kneecap. And I moved off to the left and the bear got him. Now, hopefully that brings a smile to your face as you think about thankfulness that you aren't the new boyfriend. But I tell you that because instinctively, when we are threatened, we react. It's the fight or flight mentality. Well, that happens to us in our emotions. So David Rock's research highlighted that. And he said there's really 5 buckets where those emotions really come into play. And I want to talk about those because those are the ones that you're going to experience. And some of you might say, well, I've experienced this one, but not this one. That's probably normal. Some of you are going to say, gosh, I've felt them all. Yeah, that's possible too. So the first of those is status. So that's the perception of your self-worth. It's like, how do you see yourself in relationship to others? It's our identity. It's who am I? So when you're employed, you're always kind of comparing, well, gosh, I'm a director, I'm a vice president, I'm a team leader. We're comparing ourselves to others. And all of a sudden, when you're unemployed, that gets stripped completely away. And we start to say, well, who am I? So when we're unemployed, a whole bunch of emotions come in related to status. The shame, the guilt, the pride, that feeling of failure. So this was a big one for me. So I used to introduce myself and say, "Hi, I'm Dale Kreienkamp, and I'm the head of human resources for," and I would name my company. But all of a sudden, when I didn't have that to do, I, whom a big extrovert, really didn't want to be around people because I didn't want them to ask, what do you do? Now, there's a whole lot more to me than a job. I'm married to my wife for 47 years. We have three wonderful sons. They've blessed us with six grandkids. There are so many things that are me, but my status was big to me. And in fact, that I started to feel irrelevant. Nobody needs me. And it used to be when I was at work, everybody needed me for something. Now, I'm not irreplaceable, but there were things that I did for my team and the organization that were helpful. And all of a sudden, I didn't feel like I'm helping anybody. So status was a big one for me in this journey. So let's go to the second one. Certainty. Our brains really love certainty. We like certainty because certainty is predictability. So I like to know what tomorrow is going to be like, unless I decide to change it. Well, unemployment that's unexpected puts you in a position of uncertainty. And the issue that we start to deal with is, well, wait a second, I don't know when this is going to end. So we start wrestling with the concept of permanence. So is this going to be 10 days? Is this going to be weeks? Is this going to be months? Is this going to be forever? Is this never going to end? Now, that's not real, but it happens to us because the brain is trying to get some certainty to it, and it's uncomfortable. So we really are in a position where we're feeling a little bit lost. So when you can't predict things, there's anxiety that comes around. It's easy to get discouraged. Fear comes in because you start to say, is this never going to end? Is this going to be what life is like? Again, that's not real. But there's the panic, certainly the worry about all of that. I always tell people that the biggest challenge in a job search is, I don't know when it's going to end. So if I told you, hey, good news, bad news, the job of your dreams is going to be yours. That's the good news. I mean, it's going to be beyond what you thought it would be. But the bad news is it's not going to be until next February. You would groan and you would moan and you'd say, oh my gosh, I have to go through this for 6 more months. But the reality is your brain could at least know that it's going to end. And that's why unemployment is uncomfortable, is we can't see the end and we keep trying to predict out. And so one of the things that some of you probably do to get a little certainty is you start doing the math and counting numbers. Some of you might not, but here's what I did, and it wasn't good for me. And I've talked to enough people, they do the same. They stop and say, well, I have so much in severance. I have so much in savings. I get a little bit from unemployment. So I'm just fine. My runway's good. I just have to have a job by February 1st. So then they can relax. They have some certainty in their brain, February the 1st. Well, that's great when you're here in September. But what happens when it gets to be the month of December and it's around Christmas and you're realizing, well, wait a second, February the 1st is around the corner. That very certainty that you gave yourself that calmed you down in September now begins to freak you out and panic you in December. And so counting and trying to figure things out isn't really going to help. What I can tell you is shorten your horizon. So instead of trying to think, gee, what's life going to be like 4 months from now? Just say, what can I do in the next week? What's the next week going to look like? Shorten the horizon it's much easier to deal with. The third of those emotional triggers, and they really do happen kind of unexpectedly on us because we don't even realize they're happening, is autonomy. And this picture here is from probably about 1997. My family and I were making a trip to Disney, not Disney, to SeaWorld outside of San Diego. And we were at the dolphin tank. And that's my oldest son at that time, and he's trying to get the dolphin to swim over. Now, what I didn't realize that I was doing, it just happened, is I was snapping my fingers and kind of waving at the dolphin. And my wife kind of laughed at me and said, "Do you see yourself?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You're trying to control the dolphin. You can't control a dolphin. It's going to swim wherever it wants to swim." And so autonomy is, for us, it's that feeling of I'm in control. I have the ability to have impact into the decisions that affect my life, that affect my work. When you're unemployed, that feeling of in control is somewhat lost because we feel like, well, I can't control things. As I mentioned before, I can't create a job. If there's a job out there, I can't make somebody hire me. In fact, I can't even make them interview me. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of things we can do to influence that process, but we don't control those. The only things we control are our response to what happens to us, and we have some control over our attitude. So when autonomy hits, sometimes when we're out of control, it's like, wait a second, I'm mad. I don't like this. I don't like not being in control. It's easy to feel hopelessness because you say, I control nothing, which is actually more true in life than we'd like to think. We like to think we control a lot of things. We control very few things. We influence things, but we aren't in control. And certainly we can feel lost and sad. I don't know about you, but I missed work. I really did. I enjoyed what I did. And when I wasn't working, I missed it. I missed the people. And so it was really hard when I was out of work. I didn't control anything. I couldn't control when somebody called me back. I couldn't control an email. I had a conversation with a guy, his name was Keith. He'd been out of work for almost 2 weeks. And when we met, he said, I can't take this. And I said, well, Keith, it's just 2 weeks. What's going on? And he said, well, everybody I call and everybody that I email doesn't respond. I said, what are your expectations? And he said, well, when I placed a phone call when I was working, they called back the same day. And if I sent an email, I'd get a response the next day. And I said, yeah, that was a response to your position. And right now, you're in a different position. And the reality is people are going to respond at a different time than you're expecting them. Well, when I talked to Keith a week later, he told me he'd solved it all. I said, okay, what happened? And he said, well, there was an opening for a job in another city. And he said, I don't particularly like the city, and the job's not my favorite job, but I'll be back at work. And so I took. Stop and think about that. Because he felt a little bit out of control, because he couldn't manage that, he picked up and moved his family to a job he didn't love, for a job he didn't love. Not for me, but it I guess worked for him. And I haven't talked to him since, so I don't know what's happened. But feeling out of control is really hard. So what's the next one? The next one is community. It's relationships. So this picture that you're seeing here are some of the people that I worked with at the hospital after I lost my job. So we gathered as a group. I invited everybody to come over just to kind of catch up with each other. So this is many years later, so we don't look quite as young as we used to. But that's a big emotional stressor when you don't have the people around you that you used to. And when, for many of you, when you talk to the people you used to work with, the challenge is those conversations are really hard now because you often talked about work and you're not there. So what do you talk about? If there are relationships that were built on family, common interests, and all that, it's a little bit easier. But if everything was about work, it becomes really hard. And so you go through this loss of relationships because you're not there anymore. So you kind of feel disconnected. Um, I'm an extrovert. I love being around people. And when I first went through unemployment, which was back in 2003, I was at home when working at home wasn't common. And all of a sudden, I was by myself a lot, and I didn't like it. It was uncomfortable for me. So the emotions kind of come at us because we're kind of alone. Those relationships have been severed, which is why community is really important. And the last one is fairness. Fairness is, we take a look at something and we stop and say, is this fair and equitable way to do this? Well, you'd probably be a rare person that would say, I understand why they eliminated my job and I'm A-okay. I thought that was fair. Most of us would say, wait a second, why me? Why not somebody else? Out of all the people, you've missed all the good things that I've done. This isn't fair. And so sometimes there's anger over that. Sometimes there's a little bit of confusion. Let me go back to the first time I lost my job. Our COO had said, folks, if your department is in the top quartile of efficiency, okay, then you don't have anything to worry about. We've got departments that are, 50%, they're in the bottom half. Those are the ones that we're going to try and fix. My division was in the top 10% of every statistical measurement that we had. And so when all of a sudden he said, you're on the list, it was confusing and a shock because it was like you said, here are the rules on how we're going to go through this. And as we had made some decisions about people, some of those were based on where we thought things were. So there are a variety of emotions that come to play as we go through those. So out of all the things that I've just talked about with you, I suspect you've experienced some of those. Now, maybe you know a little bit more about why, but candidly, you'd like them to go away because the emotions aren't the fun side of things. Let me share some things that I think we sometimes don't pay attention to and we need to pay closer attention to, and some ways to go in a different direction. First of all, I want you to realize that if you are married, your spouse is feeling it also. Your spouse is feeling it too. The challenge for a spouse is they're really not in control because they're not the one looking for a job. You are, but it impacts them. If you're worried about finances, trust me, your spouse is. If you feel rejected and hurt, chances are your spouse does too, because your spouse is probably sitting there saying, wait a second, they hurt the person that I love, and he or she gave up all these different times to be at work, and now there is no job. So they go through a myriad of the same types of emotions you do, just from a different seat. So I say this that we not forget spouses. In fact, what I would say to you is if you know someone who's unemployed, ask them how their spouse is. How are they doing? Because nobody asks them. So you can tell I'm the extrovert in the family. My wife is the introvert. And people would stop her all the time and say, Deb, how's Dale? How's the job search going? Well, she would faithfully answer where they are. But she said, I can probably count on one hand the number of people that stopped and said, Deb, how are you doing? So I want you to realize spouses feel it. And so it becomes very important that the two of you are talking about that. Spouses sometimes need information from you about how you're going about your job search. I had a friend of mine who was networking to find a new job. He had a lot of networking appointments, and his wife looked at him one day and she said, when are you going to start looking for a job? All you do is have cups of coffee. And it dawned on him. He said, oh my gosh, I realized she didn't truly understand my job search strategy and what I was doing, because the type of jobs I find aren't posted on Indeed or LinkedIn. They're kind of hidden out there. And then he said I had to explain the process and realize I needed to communicate more. So the two of you need to communicate about the search and your expectations. So let it go. I know you can hear the song in your head right now. But if you feel hurt, if you feel used, abused, let it go. You can't change it. You have to let it go. Because if you can't let it go, it's really hard. People will see it in you. I've told more than one person when I've networked with them, I can't pass you on because you're still so mad and you still hurt so much. You're not ready for the next opportunity. So it's going to start with just letting go the pain that you've had. But it's going to be an important piece to stepping forward. One of the other things that you're going to have to learn to do is you're going to have to learn to control your emotions, or they're going to control you. It's going to be like the elephant. You need to realize that when emotions come, those are temporary. They don't have to live there. There are ways you can get past it when you recognize, wait a second, that's not real. That's an emotional reaction to something. Well, let me move on and get past that. Now, how do we go about doing that? Well, a big piece of it's going to be a mindset change. Another story for you. Back in a number of years ago, my wife and I took our first trip abroad. We did what we called the European sampler platter. We did Paris, Munich, and Rome. And as we prepared for that trip, we realized some things that if we were going to have a fun time, we had to be a little bit better prepared. So recognize, I don't speak French, I don't speak Italian, and I had German classes formally in high school 40 some odd years ago at that time, which meant we spoke nothing in any of those languages. So as we went, we had to realize that there were going to be things that would happen that are going to be unexpected. There are going to be things that we couldn't control. Chances are we might get lost because we didn't know we were headed in the right direction or the wrong direction. And we were just going to have to roll with it. We were going to have to be more tolerant of what's happening. And I would encourage you to adopt that. But there are really some ways to get the most from this adventure that you're in the middle of. And so I want you to focus on really 4 things. Now let's start with 2 C's, and then I'll do 2 P's. The first is community. You need a support team. You need people that you can talk with somewhat regularly to get some support. If you happen to know other people that are unemployed right now, they're a great source of support because you're both going through the same experience. But you need people you can connect with, you can talk with, that can help you. And then you have to accept what you control. You control your efforts and you control your response, but you're not going to control everything else. So you've just got to accept what you control and stop trying to make the other things happen. The other is the P's. You want progress, not perfection. So there is no perfect resume. You can spend hours and hours and hours working on your resume, but you're never going to make a perfect resume. You want a good resume. The resume's goal is for them to want to talk to you. That's your goal. They're not going to hire you based on a resume. So progress moving forward. Getting interviews is a learning opportunity. And as you go through this, accept that the unexpected is going to happen. Things that you don't see are going to be there. And the other is, I want you to give yourself some permission. And the permission's really about two things. One is to try new things. I talk to people all the time and they say, I'm looking for a job just like what I did in another company in my industry. Well, sometimes that just narrowed the opportunities for you because there's only so many companies of that size in your industry that'll have a job just like you did. So sometimes you need to give yourself permission to say, I've got some skills and abilities, but I'm going to need to try something different. I might be in a different industry. I may be in a different type of company. And then the other is to give yourself some permission for time off. So there is a fallacy that people tell you all the time. They say, well, you have to work as hard and as long looking for a job as you did when you worked. I don't know what your schedule is, but when I was working as an executive, I probably put in 50, sometimes 55 hours a week. I guarantee you there weren't 50 to 55 hours worth of job search things that I could do. You'll grind yourself. And then you'll begin to think, well, if I take off, that'll be the day that the perfect job comes open and my resume won't be the first one in. What I'm going to tell you is, if that's the job for you, God's not going to let anything happen that's going to keep it from you, which means make sure you take a little time off here and there to give yourself a break. Now, I'm not saying take 4 months off and just relax and enjoy yourself and then go to do your job search. But as part of your job search, if the weather is good and your spouse is off that day, or you want, go take a day and just be with them. You need a break and you need some time off. That's important. I want to talk about 5 places that I've found over the years when I talk to people that they get stuck most often. And here they are. First of all, my question to you is, how well does your network know that you're unemployed? When I was first looking for a job, very first time I went in transition, I didn't tell many people. I kind of assumed people would have heard. And at about 6 months into my job search, people started saying, Dale, I didn't know you were at the hospital anymore. I wish I would have known. My company had a great opportunity for an HR person and you'd have been perfect for us. Or, Dale, I didn't know you were looking for a job. Gosh, I wish I had known. My best friend's company was looking for somebody and they asked if I knew anybody. I would have loved to have given your name. It was always past tense. What I'm going to tell you is you need to get the word out, because if people don't know, they can't help. And people really do want to help, which is really kind of hard. I recognize it's like you're creating a LinkedIn post, or maybe it's an email. I did it by email that says, hey, I got cut from the baseball team. You got a baseball team that I can play on. I know emotionally it's not easy. Our pride doesn't want to write that. But I'm telling you, when I sent that out to my network, and that network is not just the people you work with, it's friends, it's family, it's as many people as you can think of. I got all sorts of responses from people saying, how can I help you? Let's get together for lunch. Let's get together for a cup of coffee. Who can I introduce you to? I'm praying for you. I'll keep my ears open. I had people knock on my door. When the world knows, they can help. And so you need to let them know. So Don't let pride get in your way. Let people know. And then you're going to need to keep them informed about what's going on. So if I tell my network today, 6 weeks from now, if they don't hear from you, they assume you found a job. 6 weeks from now, you might still be looking. So if you don't update people every 4 to 6 weeks, they'll assume you found a job. So you have to get good at telling the world. The second is everybody wrestles with what's next. And I'm going to tell you, this is an opportunity to rethink, what do you do? So I want you to assess your gifts and your skills, your dreams, your past successes, what gives you joy, because what you're looking for is that opportunity to use your gifts and have joy at work. It is not to get a paycheck. The paycheck is the byproduct. Stop and ask yourself, maybe it's time to change. Maybe I've been in small companies. It's time to go to work for a big one, big to small. Maybe it's time to be in business for myself. I went into consulting and it worked wonderfully for 5 years till that client kept chasing me away. Is it time for you to go back to school to get some more education, get some more skills training? Wrestle with what's next, but remember the goal is something that gives you joy and uses those gifts and skills that you have. And recognize we can all do a lot of things. Not everything gives me great joy. I can do Excel really well, but if I have to do a day of it, much less a job of it, that would not be fun for me. The third thing is get your tools in shape. Yeah, you need a resume. And in fact, that resume will probably change based on the job. And you have to have all your social media done and consistent. This is a great time if somebody's not told you. If your Facebook page has you drinking beers with your friends, I'd probably clean it up. If your email doesn't reflect your name, get your name on a Gmail account, first name dot last name or something like that, so that people know that it's you when you're communicating, not something that related to best golfer in the world or something like that. Learn about LinkedIn. Learn about how to best position yourself. You've got tools that are going to help you, but they aren't going to do it for you. They are just tools in your toolbox. The fourth is to network. Networking is critical. You need to get out and meet people. Why? Because you need to learn about where jobs are. If you only respond to what's on LinkedIn or what you see on Indeed or as some other job board, recognize that's where everybody else is looking too. What you want to do is find the job that nobody knows about, that maybe hasn't been posted, that they're doing a quiet search because they don't want to do it. And so you need to get out and meet people. Let me share a story of a good friend of mine. He used to work for me, and he's one of those people that started their career, but his career took off far better than mine ever was. And he was an executive with a large company in the St. Louis area, and they got bought, and he was out of work. And he told me he was looking for many months and frustrated with the process. And somebody said, can you meet with so-and-so? They need some help with a resume. Well, like me, he was an HR person. He said, sure, I can help with a resume. So he sat down with this person who was a scientist, and he helped him with the resume. And the guy looked at him and he said, oh my gosh, this has been so helpful, but I don't know how to thank you. I don't know what I can do for you. And then he paused and he said, but you know, my next door neighbor works in human resources. Would you like to meet her? And my friend said, you know what? I'm always happy to meet people. I'd love to. And so he met with her. Now, she was not the chief HR person in that company. She was further down, but they had a wonderful cup of coffee. She took his resume into her boss and said, hey, I met this really neat guy if we're ever looking for anything. And they passed the resume up. Well, his expertise and what he had done and what he was looking to do happened to match a job that they'd had not posted. And guess what? My friend got the job. He got the job from just having a cup of coffee with somebody that he didn't know. In fact, some of you are going to realize that we often think that the networking we do is people we know, and that's where jobs come from. No, more jobs come from the people that you don't know, that you meet from people that maybe you do know. And so I'm going to encourage you to stop and start to pull together a list of all the people you know that you can start meeting with. And start with group A is, I always say, close friends and family, people that'll be honest with you. If they're going to be just Minnesota nice with you, they aren't going to help you. You need people to try out your networking. This is who I am. This is what I'm looking for. Time with them and get comfortable with that. Then go to the people that have clients. So think of wealth managers, think of accountants, think of real estate agents, think of attorneys, people that have a book of business because they've got people in their universe that they might be able to introduce you to. And then the next is, you probably know one or two people that just seem to know everybody. You go to a party and they know everybody. You want to spend time talking to them and then everybody else. And just continue to say, who can you introduce me to? And just get comfortable getting out and meeting people. It's an opportunity that's really important. And the last is, you need to be faithful to the process. Faithful to the process because it's not going to happen automatically in 30 days. In fact, just to begin to get your networking rolling is a challenge. So stay faithful to the process. Don't quit. My wife, whom I dearly love, was such a support for me. And she said something to me periodically that really just kept me going. She said, honey, I'm so proud of you. And I'd say, well, why? I'm the guy out of work. And she said, yeah, but you're faithful to the process. You get up and you put on, back then it was a sport coat to go network with somebody that you don't know, not knowing what's going to come of that, but you're faithful to it. So I'm going to encourage you to just be faithful to the process. In closing, and then we'll take some questions and probably use the chat feature to do that. So if you've got some questions on your mind, you can shoot them into the chat. And maybe Harry can kind of help me with the chat and see what we can answer those. But I want to go back to 1829. This is a picture of the Royal Calcutta Golf Club in India. So the British had established India as a colony. And after they had more or less settled, they built a golf course. And because golf came from the British Isles, they wanted to golf. And as they began to golf, they found out golfing in India was a different thing than golfing in the British Isles, because there were animals that were unique to India that didn't exist in England and Scotland and Ireland. So elephants, lions, there were more snakes. And the ones that got the most difficulty for them were the monkeys. Because you see, the monkeys would run out and see a golf ball and they would grab it and they would throw it. Now, if you've never played golf before, I'm going to tell you that when you hit a golf ball, you can kind of see where it goes. If all of a sudden you get there and it's not there, that can be frustrating. And they got really frustrated at the monkeys throwing the golf balls. So because the British are kind of engineers and builders, they built some fences along the sides of the fairways, leaving some gaps further up, which allowed them to then let the animals pass in those gaps. And that worked really well for the bigger animals. But you know what? Monkeys climb fences. And so the monkeys would climb the fences, run down, grab the ball, and throw it. And this got really frustrating. And so the members had a meeting to try and say, what are we going to do about that? And one of the people said, let's have a local rule. Well, a local rule for golf means that rule only applies at this course. And his suggestion was, we just play the ball where the monkey throws it. And you know what? Everybody's attitude improved. It became a challenge to them. The monkey threw it sometimes ahead, sometimes to the side, sometimes behind. And so then they challenged them to say, hey, what can I do with this bad lie? What can I do with this unexpected, difficult challenge that I'm now faced with. And they began to enjoy golf again. And I think there's a message in there for all of you, and especially those that are unemployed today. And that is, you need to embrace the opportunity and play the ball where the monkey throws it. Because right now, your ball got thrown. And it's not of your choosing, but it did happen. And so I want you to get some opportunity to say, what can I do now with this? I want to make this a better thing. Let me share a couple of other things. Harry mentioned to you that I wrote a book. This is the book. This is one of the screens you want to take a picture of, and I'll send all these slides to Harry in a PDF so he can get them out to anybody that was on the webinar. But this was written for you to help you understand the journey that you're going through. We ship for free, so we're just like Amazon, so my website is the best place. I want to share a couple things that people said. So I get emails and notes from people who've read the book. And one of the reasons I wrote the book was to give people an understanding that what they're going through is not unique. Because when you think it's unique, you almost feel like there's something wrong with you. And so you can, if you read some of these areas that I highlighted, I've experienced every stage and emotion and feeling you discussed in your book. The next review, everything on every page I've read is exactly what I'm going through. And I've read and reread several chapters as I work through all the emotions related to being unemployed. It's an important tool, folks. Make sure you get it. It's going to be valuable to you as you move forward in this journey. I also created a free download, a 6-week study for small groups. So if you've got some friends that are unemployed, you guys can kind of go through the process together. It's a freebie and it's on my website for you there. Some of you maybe don't like to read. On my site in the audio section, you'll find a number of podcasts. I'm going to tell you that these are 2 of the better ones. So Family Life Today and Nothing is Wasted. These are really good ones. They're also good ones for if you're married or you have a dating relationship that's really close or a fiance. They should do it also, because I think they'll better understand what you're going through. And this is a great way to do it especially if you prefer this method than actually reading itself. This is how you can find me. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to be connected with you at LinkedIn. And if there's any way I can help you, boy, I'd sure love to be able to help you. So please reach out. Would be happy to help. And so now I think I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's any questions that we can try and answer for anybody before we turn it over for Harry and the group for the rest of it.
Please do type in any questions into the chat box. Dale's glad to address those questions or comments. Love to hear them. I can't recommend the book more highly. It's so good. And what you didn't mention is that there's a index in the back, and whatever emotion or challenge or struggle you're going through in your job search, you can look it up in the index and it'll take you to a devotion that's specifically geared towards that. And I think many people have found that incredibly helpful, because that can change from day to day. What you struggle with today is different from yesterday and is going to be different from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Dale, incredibly helpful. Every time I listen to you, it just gives me a couple other pointers. We were talking before we got on today about the fact I've used the golf course analogy many times, and it applies to every area of life, not just in the job search, but I think so many times we get so bogged down with what happened to us and don't look at, okay, this is where I am now. How do I play it from here? And we get too stuck in what we didn't like that happened in the past.
There's an opportunity. And one of the things that I found when I went to work for the client that I'd done consulting with is they were just in awe of some of the things that in the past people just took for granted, and they had a greater appreciation for them. And so sometimes we just need a new opportunity um, to spread our roots and grow a little further.
Absolutely. We have a comment. What a skipping by here. What a timely message. Thank you for addressing the topic. Much needed. Very comforting to know and acknowledge all these feelings. God bless you. Thank you, Harry, for hosting. We were talking beforehand, and I mean, good for you guys that are on this webinar. And frankly, our attendance on this topic often is smaller than when we're talking about resumes or networking or interviews or those practical topics. But frankly, I've really come to understand that this is more important. I see more people get hung up in their job search because of the emotional challenges and the roller coaster and the attitude issues they face than the practical stuff, the tactical stuff, I should say. This is so critically important, and I think you have to be so much more deliberate about managing your thought life every day in this process than when you're in a job. I talk often about the fact that when you're in a job, you're kind of on autopilot. You know what's expected of you each day. You have your schedule and routines, and you just kind of walk through your day. And now you don't have a schedule or routines. Nobody's telling you when you have to be at work in the morning. Nobody's telling you you have to get this done other than get a job. And that feels overwhelming at times. And that lack of structure and expectations is really tough for people. I think we have a question here. Thank you for your insights. When you using LinkedIn, the negativity from others who have been searching so much longer than I do, do you have any suggestions to help pull out helpful information without taking their emotion in?
Yeah, that's the blessing of and the curse of social media is we can make assumptions out of that. Again, I go back to what I said is it's an individual journey. It's your journey. Whatever they experience isn't going to be what you experience. So you just kind of need to ignore that and focus on your experiences, because you have a whole different set of experiences in your life to this day and time. And so I would just gloss over, but I wouldn't focus on anything there. It's your journey.
I talk often about you have to be very deliberate about what you're taking in every day, and the people you hang around with. You need people that will encourage you and give you hope and give you practical help, as opposed to crying in your beer together. And
and I think sometimes we are disappointed that we expect certain people in our life to step up and help, and they don't for whatever reason, whether it's not the right time in life for them or they don't understand it. But we're also unbelievably surprised at the people that come out of the woodwork that we didn't even know that are so very helpful in a job search. And so that's why it's just going to be a unique trip, and you're going to make new friends. So I have friends that I met in transition that I'm still friends with today. I met somebody networking that we loved each other and our conversation so much for 6 to 8 months. We met once a month for a cup of coffee. They couldn't help me find the job, but we sure enjoyed our time together. So there are some pleasant surprises that can come out of it.
Exactly. Somebody's asking about something that you addressed in your presentation too. So they say, so knowing that your spouse is feeling the same feelings, how do you handle it when that is one of the biggest stressors for you? My wife has a medical condition and stress is unhealthy for her. I know she's feeling those feelings, but it's difficult to support her when I'm going through the job search.
Yeah, so I think it's have the conversations with her to let her talk about it, because my hunch is she may not feel comfortable talking about what bothers her and things that might be important to her. So some people want to know what's going on in the job search, others don't want to know. And you need to find that happy medium. I had a friend of mine who said, my wife doesn't really want to know anything about the job search. She's just wants to be left alone. And I've had others that want to know everything. In fact, I had one woman who sent me an email. She said, "Thanks for your book." I'm paraphrasing her. She said, "I've kind of been the spouse from hell because I read the book and my husband's been looking, and I realized I wanted him to look for a job the way I would look for a job, but I didn't understand his. And so once we got on the same page about what his needs were, it became easier." So for your spouse, yeah, maybe she just needs to have a chance to voice those things that she's felt uncomfortable talking about, and for you to listen and not necessarily fix, but at least receive. And sometimes there'll be some common ground for talking that might help.
That's great. We have multiple other thank yous, and then also just somebody mentioning it's true. It's hard to keep up the brave face after weeks of being unemployed and receiving rejections. It's tough when you get those rejections, and again, why you have to be so diligent about managing your emotions every day. Someone else, with being faithful to the process, any tips how you can consistently structure your day or week while unemployed?
Yeah, actually, and there are 3 chapters in the book about it. A friend of mine kind of gave me the tip. I would have focus days, flex days, and days off. And the focus days were days that I said, okay, these are the days that I'm going to set networking appointments. I'm going to really focus on communication, whatever it is. These are days. So I might have 3 days in the week that are that way. A flex day is one where I'm going to do that. But if something else comes up, I give myself freedom to step away and do that. So golf is my mistress. So if somebody would call and say, "Can you play on Wednesday afternoon?" If that was a flex day, I'd say, "Sure, I can go out and do that." And then I scheduled some days off. And it might be a day off every other week. It might not be every week it's a day off. It might be every week a day off. But I think in doing that, you give yourself permission to go, because again, there's not 50 hours worth of stuff that you can do, and you'll go nuts trying to do that. But you kind of need some permission. But you also sometimes need to focus. I've met people who get too comfortable with the time off and the lack of schedule and lack of discipline, and you need some discipline. And so that worked better for me.
Perfect. Need to move on here, but Dale, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time this morning. Joining us from St. Louis is terrific, and this is so timely and helpful. We were talking earlier, just yesterday, a couple of people that were saying they're discouraged. They were on here today. I hope it gave them some great pointers and encouragement in this process as well. I know it likely did. I do want to run through other things we have available through Crossroads so that you can take advantage of them. Virtually everything is free. It's not a bait and switch, come to the free event, and then we're going to try to sell you on something we charge for. It's just not the case at all. We have a team of volunteers that enables us to do a lot of different things. And I just want to make sure you're aware of them all. So let me share my screen here and have you plug in. Much of what we do is online. Some of things are in person. And so it's whether you're local or not, you can take advantage of a number of different things we do with Crossroads. Everything that we have available and everything we do is on our website at mncrossroads.com. And so if you haven't perused that, encourage you to do so. You probably went to the website to sign up for this webinar this morning, but encourage you to take a look around, go to the homepage at mncrossroads.com, and there's lists of different things that we offer in the schedules there. We also have locally here a number of companies that know what we do, know that great people come through Crossroads, and so they post jobs on we have a job board on the page too, on the website. And so check that out periodically, because there's some great jobs there that might be a fit for you, and you can let them know you found out about it through Crossroads, and they pay attention to that, and they keep advertising on our job board because they know they find great people here. And so I think it's just a great help to be considering that as well. But there's a resources page. This webinar will be, or the slides, when Dale sends them to me, I'll post on that resources page as well. And so you can get those, but you're also going to be able to watch this on our YouTube channel. I'll explain that in a moment. Kind of our cadence each month is the first Thursday of the month is in person only at Grace Church in Eden Prairie locally here. And that's our big meeting each month. So we have a seminar topic, somebody come in and speak on some topic related to job search. It's, as I mentioned, the first Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. in person at Grace Church. We have our networking group that meets following the presentation that morning. And then we have somebody come in and talk about financial considerations during job transition, as well as a micro job fair. We have anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 companies that'll come in and set up a table, and you can go talk to them about opportunities they have available right now. So take advantage of that if you're local here, and that'll be coming up. I believe it's October 2nd, whatever the first Thursday is in October. The second Thursday evening of each month is on the other end of the metro in Woodbury, and at Woodbury Lutheran Church, and we meet in person there for another topical seminar presentation. And then the third Thursday, which is what you're on right now, is our webinar each month online. So you can see all the upcoming topics and speakers on our website. Look at the seminars page, and you'll see what's scheduled for the next several weeks. On a weekly basis, there's multiple ways you can get plugged in. We have our Networking with Grace group. As I mentioned, they meet in person on the first Thursday of the month, but then every following Thursday, they meet online through a Zoom meeting. And it's a great way to trade contacts and leads and ideas with each other and get some encouragement. Wes Tang has been leading this for us since 2009 for an awful lot of years. I really appreciate him, and he does a great job of helping everybody walk out with something each time. So take advantage of that to be able to trade contacts and leads and get some encouragement on a weekly basis. We have one-on-one coaching available. We have over 25 volunteers that are coaches that come with expertise in job search, and you can fill out the form online to request somebody to reach out to you to set up a time for a Zoom meeting or a phone call. And you can talk to them about anything you want related to your job search, whether it's a look at your resume and offer critique, or help you prepare for interviews, do mock interview practice, maybe talk more about networking, or just to talk through your situation with somebody that gets it and might have some fresh ideas for you and some encouragement. So you can take advantage of that as often as you'd like. As I say, sign up online for that. We're big believers in spiritual support and prayer, and we have a team of people that just love to pray for you. They do as a group anyway, but if you have a specific prayer request, you can put that in on our website and somebody will follow up to let you know they're praying for you. If you feel like you really need to talk to somebody and get some spiritual support, this isn't about getting help with your resume, but rather just to help you walk through that emotional journey and provide some spiritual support and prayer personally, you can see the information on our website and email us to get that set up as well. Our meat and potatoes, the most in-depth help is through our online classes. And we start a new class each month, and we cover every aspect of an effective job search, starting with attitude and doing some assessments so you can articulate better what makes you unique, and networking and targeting companies, and every topic you can imagine through a job search. And as important as those tactical topics are, and they're critically important, we do a great job with those. But I think equally important is having that weekly light accountability, getting some encouragement, and new spring in your step for the next week, the moral support. And we talked throughout the 8 weeks about what's God's perspective of your job search in your life, because I think this is a unique time in your life when he can really speak into what's going on and have you connect with him more. So we have, as I mentioned, new classes starting monthly. You can see the details on the website and register there. They're free. Certainly encourage you to plug in and take advantage of that. We have a LinkedIn group. If you put MN Crossroads Career Network in the search bar in LinkedIn, you'll find us. There's actually 2 things that'll come up when you search on that. One is our company page, which I encourage you to follow that as well. You'll find postings of new events coming up there and news about Crossroads. But more importantly for us, frankly, is the more followers we have, the more visible it becomes and more people become aware that we're out there. And we're not just trying to grow numbers, but we want people that want the help in their job search to know that we're available and take advantage of it. But the other thing that'll come up is our LinkedIn group, which you have to click to get permission to join the group. We'll approve that. And in there is also news about things going on at Crossroads. There's recruiters in there that post jobs as well. But more importantly is I think we're approaching 3,000 people in the group now. And those are people that have been through Crossroads, landed in new jobs primarily, and are willing to be contacts at those organizations. And so you can look through who else is in the group, where are they working, and is it a place that I'm targeting? And you can reach out to them to get some advice and help, possibly a referral for a particular job. And it's a great resource. And then after you land, it's a great way to give back and just stay in the group and be available for others to reach out to you as well. So take advantage of the LinkedIn group. It's just do the search and you'll find us, and you can move on from there. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a YouTube channel, and all of our webinars that we did through the pandemic and the one a month we do now is there. All those videos are posted on our YouTube channel. And so one of our other leaders, he talks about always, he jokes that on a Friday night, you can curl up with your significant other on the couch and watch job search videos. That might not be the greatest idea of how to include your spouse, but it is a great place to get a lot of great topics and information that can be helpful in this process. So you can watch it at double time. You can skip over me talking and get right to the meat of it. And so I encourage you to check those out. If you're local, I cannot emphasize enough how much I hope you take advantage of this. We have coming up this next Tuesday, September 23rd from 6 to 9 p.m., a large-scale networking event, expecting between 200 to 300 people. We're going to do a very brief presentation on why it's useful to have a lot of LinkedIn connections, how to do that real simply and easily with your phone, and then with the phone app. And then we give you a chance for the next couple of hours to meet with and connect with as many people as you'd like. We're going to have food available. I mean, just snacks, not dinner, but we're going to make it a nice festive event and get a chance to meet with a ton of other people that can be useful in your job search as well. So come take advantage of it. We do ask that you register in advance. It is free. There's no charge. It's at Grace Church in Eden Prairie. You can find all the details on our website. Actually, if you just go to the homepage at mncrossroads.com, at the top is a banner that'll, if you click on that, it'll take you right to the detailed information. But if you're local in the Twin Cities, this is a great event to make a lot of connections quickly. And I'm just very grateful. Thrivent has been a great partner for us, and they are supporting this, paying for the food and everything for us. I'm just grateful for their participation. Also coming up, once a quarter, we do a full day job search workshop. Our next one is going to be coming up Saturday, October 18th. If you haven't been to it before, encourage you to do it. If you have been to it, encourage you to come back. It's a great way to kind of kickstart wherever you're at. If you're just starting your job search, it's a ton of topics that'll help you be more effective in your job search. If you've been in your job search for a while, it's a great refresher to remind yourself, am I doing these things? Maybe get some other new, fresh ideas and just some hope and encouragement through the process too. So details are online. There is a charge for this, $20. We do include lunch and workbook for that, but we don't want anybody not to come because of cost. So if cost is an issue, please email us. There's information on the website, and we'll provide a scholarship for you to come for free. This is, we do charge for it to kind of offset the cost. It costs us more than $20 per person, but it offsets it somewhat, but we don't want anybody not to come because of cost. So please look at the details on the website and join us if you can. I just want to acknowledge we have actually over 45 people that volunteer for Crossroads in one way or another, and it enables us to do all the different things we offer. And I'm grateful for all of them because they are key to helping us get the things done that we do. And so as you meet people or talk to them, I just ask that you thank them because they put in their time and effort. Nobody's getting a paycheck. They bring expertise and have a heart to help others, and I'm grateful for every one of them. If you don't have a church home, I encourage you to check out ours, Grace Church in Eden Prairie, or Woodbury Lutheran Church, which hosts Crossroads as well. Both of them are solid biblical churches that teach well, but also a great place to build community and get some emotional and spiritual support there. So visit us on a Sunday morning, watch us online if you're out of town, but get plugged in. Our next event is in person at Grace Church. It's Thursday morning, 2 weeks from now, October 2nd. Sam Henneman will be talking about community, your secret weapon, both from a networking perspective and a moral support perspective, and how to take advantage of that effectively and be community to others as well. So it's a great topic, important and helpful for your job search. Hope you can join us there. We're also going to have the networking group and the micro job fair that morning. So it'll be very productive for the day. Hope this was worthwhile for you this morning. We're over time. I apologize about that, but take advantage of the other things. And I hope you don't have to join us for more because you land a job soon. But otherwise, certainly hope that you can take advantage of other opportunities. Have a great day.